Welcome, Canada. People who like the show, people literally paid to watch the show to sue me sometime in the future. This is your favorite part of the week, or the part of the week where you get paid to listen to me ramble, which you might enjoy or not. Who knows? If you're a lawyer, contact me on how much you like the show. Anyways, we have a lot to get to today, as there's even some breaking stuff before this happens, but I'm going to start with the Biden border crisis. We have the tragedy in the shooting in Georgia and Atlanta, and basically the battle over the narrative and how ridiculous it's getting, and you know, why we just can't have, you know, some sort of unity on like hate crimes and evil is bad. Colombia has decided to reinstitute the great valued American tradition of racial segregation. Yes, racial segregation is now in vogue. Now that used to be a bad thing, but now it is a good thing, as Colombia is set to have 6 different graduations based on income, gender, race, whatever. Now we have Iran has finally come out with a report on the downing of the Flight 752. If you remember, over a year ago, I solved the riddle with the help of Tom Quiggin because I found someone who knew how an SA-15 system worked. But Iran has come out and said, turns out it wasn't Iran's fault. It was actually the passengers on the plane's fault. It was an accident, and the plane shot itself down. And then they even concluded that the missile didn't look like it hurt anyone. I mean, everyone died by the 2 missile strikes, but it wasn't really Iran's fault. Thank you, CBC, for giving us that. We have Russiagate round 2. We're actually getting into Russiagate round 2. Hopefully you have time to go into the wee scandal, and I know this isn't on the Chiron, but I just saw this. Aaron O'Toole is now slamming the Liberals for not spending enough on foreign aid. I have to go into that because Aaron O'Toole. All right, so number 1 story, the Biden border crisis. Now, if you remember, the worst thing to ever happen to the world, and worse than the Nazis, was Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was a literal fascist because he had children in cages, or as they're called now, migrant overflow facilities. And I spent a good amount of time on this show trying to explain the cause and effect of these different policies and how they impacted families at the border and what you can do to reduce the amount of, as they say, kids in cages, minors in overgrow facilities, and how the Democrats have basically manufactured this crisis to score political points and don't really care about the immigrants. So I want to pull up, this was the video from CBC News. Here's a screenshot of CBC News' video, and it's literally titled, "Migrants Flood U.S. Border with Hope of Looser Immigration Policies Under Biden." So can we bring up that clip, please? Now, you see here, like this, I paused it to get this part of the screenshot because this is like the smile you could see on her face when she mentions, do you think Joe Biden the reason you're here? And she said, yes. The reason why we're surging the border right now is because Joe Biden is president and Joe Biden has told us that we are welcome. Now, Joe Biden said, we don't, please stay home now. Now, there is clips that I'm not going to go into now, but you can find clips of Joe Biden in 2019 basically saying, under my presidency, illegal immigration, welcome, as a means to score political points. Okay. So let us break down what exactly is happening. Now, there's been a lot of bad rhetoric around this on all sides. Now, the worst was, AOC fake crying at an empty parking lot. This is literally murder. Kids are in cages. How could we do this? And the answer was, okay, these cages, here is Barack Obama at these facilities in 2014. So they were not started under Trump. They were started in the Obama administration. And the situation has been a mix of bad policy on the border and classic political shenanigans of kicking everything down the road and half measures to not really deal with much. Okay. So what you have is a situation where crossing the border is one of the most dangerous things that a young woman can do. The person most likely to be sexually assaulted or raped in all of we'll say Central America, South America, we'll say the Americas, the Western Hemisphere, is crossing the American border illegally. You're very, it's the most likely place for you to get captured by coyotes, smugglers. Again, smugglers are not the most reputable sources. Raped, either sold into some sort of into the sex trade. A lot of young women get taken advantage of by these coyotes because, again, this is a black market dealing. Well, just open the border and let everyone in. You can literally not let everyone into the United States and claim welfare. Like, it's just infeasible. All right. So you have a situation here where, people are coming in. Then what the Obama administration tried to do is try to institute a policy that kids could not be kept in, detention facilities for more than 30 days. I believe it's 30 days, or a certain amount of time. Now, what this caused is, because Obama had the big sort of open borders signaling, all the massive surge of people, like with kids, right? You can't process everyone within 30 days. It's just, no government can do anything in under 30 years, let alone 30 days. So you had a situation where once the 30 days was up, kids would get separated from their parents. Now, there's another thing where 30% of the kids crossing with their parents, those aren't their real parents. A lot of, because then the Obama administration tried to sort of mitigate these problems, both the sort of the catch and release policy if you came with kids, you had a problem where now what coyotes were doing is they were bringing children with them, so if they get caught, they could say, these are my kids, so they could then be caught and released and not, detained further. So you increase the problem of coyotes bringing children across the border. Now, a lot of this went down under Donald Trump. And the reason why a lot of these problems went down under Donald Trump, because Donald Trump discouraged illegal immigration. So illegal immigration fell, therefore the problems with illegal immigration fell, right? Border crossings were down 90%, under Donald Trump, right? Now you see hundreds of thousands of illegals trying to surge the border, or as the CBC say, migrants flood the border because of Biden. Right? Now the problems will increase because Joe Biden has basically gone with an open borders policy. All right. There's another element to this, is every time the Trump administration tried to build better facilities to house these, minors or better detention facilities, tried to increase their capacity, right? The Democrats stopped them, and the media stopped them with the mass hysteria of Donald Trump wants to build concentration camps. Oh my God, this is literally the Holocaust, only worse because it's Trump. And Hitler's the worst person ever, except the good thing about Hitler is he wasn't Donald Trump, right? And now you can't ever compare anything to the Holocaust because then you're anti-Semitic, but only we can, again, we're in this cultural nonsense zone. So you had for 4 years the media and the Democrats doing everything they can to exacerbate the border problem and stopping legitimate solutions from being implemented. Now they have control, right? The border's been reopened, right? They're not just letting everyone in, they still have to detain illegals because some of these people are drug smugglers, cartel members. Again, Mexico is not the most well-functioning state in the world. And everyone along the border, and anyone with any amount of intellectual integrity will tell you, when it comes to the border crisis, almost every illegal border crossing is done with the blessings of the cartels. Again, you have these coyotes, they run drugs and stuff, they're all cartel connected. So the people benefiting the most from illegal immigration are the cartels. Now we try and play it up, and the CBC comes down to Texas and does these sob stories on the Honduran migrants. They can find, some mother and son who's like, yes, we came for a better life for what? Like, I don't get it. Like, it's also the middle of a pandemic, right? How can you just let people into the country unchecked? They're getting COVID tests, like people just coming in unchecked. I mean, again, this is where the Democratic rhetoric just drives everyone insane with the gaslighting. COVID's literally going to kill us all. It's the most dangerous thing. Ontario's in for a third wave. Cases are going to triple. Do we have the data to support that? No, you just have to believe it because belief is the bedrock of science, trademark science. Now you have people basically, 100,000 illegal immigrants just flooding into the country. So brave, so amazing. COVID's going to kill us all. No one's allowed to travel and go outside their home. Everyone stay home, stay locked down, right? No one's allowed to go outside their house. But we need more illegal immigrants from Honduras to help us get through the pandemic, right? It's just insane. So you are going to see illegal immigrants and migrants suffer as the result of open borders politicians. Now, they can do the full Canada. They can go full Justin Trudeau and say, open borders, we're not going to check anyone, and if you come into America illegally, we're going to pay for you to go to this hotel. We're just going to set you up in a hotel and give you everything for free, and you know what? The Canadian homeless population, booming, expanding. Let's take away beds from the homeless and the homeless shelters. Let's use them to house illegal immigrants. And screw it, because the homeless people don't really vote anyway. And yes, let's turn the middle class into the lower middle class. Let's turn the people struggling into the homeless, and let's turn the homeless into the dead. Brilliant social policy from the left. That was Canada. And this is what you're going to see in the United States. So the sad thing here is a lot of the rhetoric gets bogged down into, oh, I thought there were kids in cages. No more kids in cages. What about the kids in cages? Whereas what actually needs to be talked about here is, this is bad policy. Right? When you have bad, naive policy and you signal open borders, you create problems. Right? A good thing is to be strong against illegal immigrants. If you set the precedent that no, if you come here illegally, you will be sent back, less people will try and come in illegally, and more people will try and come in legally. And the other part is, you don't get put in one of these detention facilities if you had come and declared yourself at a proper border crossing. The only people who get sent to these kids in cages facilities are people who try and cross illegally and avoid, the specific border patrols. And if you're saying, well, these people are just trying to declare asylum. If you want to declare asylum, you declare asylum at a U.S. embassy, or you do it at a legal border crossing. Then you can come into the country and wait for your asylum hearing and not get locked up. However, the Democrats did not tell anyone this, and the media continued to push these false narratives, which caused people to be afraid of the authorities, try and circumvent the legal system, thus ending up in the cages. Information you don't find on CNN. Okay. Now, before my head explodes, let's move on to the next story, which will make my head explode. So before we get into the shooting in Atlanta, let's go over this thing from Columbia University, because this just shows where we are with critical race theory. Let's bring up this. This is from this story on Fox News. Columbia University hosting 6 separate graduation ceremonies based on income, level, race, and ethnicities. Welcome to critical race theory, where we must divide everyone into different little groups, right? We value people based on whatever intersectional capabilities. Asians go here, blacks go here, whites go here. Now, I bring this up because this is actually the #1 problem in the Asian American community, in the Asian Canadian community. It's critical race theory. It's the fact that under equity standards, right, and schools not being equitable enough, many Asian Americans are being taken out of advanced learning programs, which they have rightfully earned their places into, because it is not diverse enough, right? Asian Americans are succeeding too much, therefore, and this must come at the cost of other groups. Therefore, we must punish the Asian Americans for succeeding. This is the #1 problem facing the Asian American community. A lot of them come in as immigrants. They come in poor. Their parents say, do your homework. They do their homework, and under a fair system, an equal system, they get straight A's in high school. They get to go to Columbia. They get to go to Yale. Right? And we're going to bring up the Yale thing soon, because we have Nicole Hannon-Jones coming up next. Okay, so that's the prefix for this next story. In Atlanta, you have a horrible massacre where a shooter goes into a massage parlor. Okay, we all know, rub and tug, murders 8 people, 6 of them Asian, I think 1 Latino, 1 white. Okay, now this is welcome to I like to welcome the Asian American community to the Jewish community. Welcome to hate crimes don't matter unless the attacker's race or ethnicity fits a preemptive narrative. So Asians, just want to let you know, you do not matter unless you can be used as a political pawn. Now you can be used as a political pawn. So let's have New York Times, editor Sarah Rio. Let's see what Sarah Rio has to say about this. This is coming hot off the presses, right? First one. So let's bring up this tweet. I'll read it to you before we bring it up. Okay. A white man has just assassinated 8 Asians in Atlanta. Instead of sending thoughts and prayers, white people need to dismantle the toxic whiteness that is killing us. Whiteness is terrorism. This is beyond stupid. This is beyond stupid. And I will bet $8 billion, $8 billion. I don't have that money. You know what? $85 billion. I will bet all of Justin Trudeau's foreign aid budget that the next time you see an Islamic terrorist attack, Sarah Rio does not follow this thought pattern that says Islam is terrorism. Now, I don't believe whiteness is terrorism. Islam isn't terrorism. Terrorists can be white. Terrorists can be Islamic. Terrorists can be motivated by white supremacy. Terrorists can be motivated by Islamic supremacy. Whiteness and Islam are not terrorism. But this is the center of discourse we have, right? Something terrible has happened, and it must fit my narrative, so we must make it fit the narrative. Now, enter, was it Pulitzer Prize or Nobel Prize historian Nicole Hannon-Jones, founder of the 1619 Project. And here's some of her previous takes on Asian Americans, and here's some of her current takes. So let's now go to the Nicole Hannon-Jones, or Ida B. Wells, as she calls herself on Twitter. And do we have them up? Okay, so I'll read you, this is before the shooting, what she's saying about Asians. Here's her August 13th last year. Most Asian Americans arrived in this country at the end of legal segregation and discrimination, thanks to the black resistance struggle. Yale has direct ties to slavery. Further, the DOJ is not going after the segregated and equal schools that black children attend. And then someone responds, Helen, they were here long before that. They came to dig for gold and build the railroad. I mean, yeah. Chinese and Japanese immigrants have been in North America for a very long time, since the beginning, since the beginning. She goes, I did not say no Asian people immigrated here prior to 1965. I said most in this country did not because of the Chinese Exclusion Act and racist immigration quota system. That means most present-day Asian Americans do not experience legal discrimination here. Fascinating argument put out by Nicole Hannon-Jones here of, your ancestors didn't actually experience, legal discrimination, so you don't know discrimination, recent African immigrants, they don't qualify. It's all stupid. But this is all in context, and this conversation is taking part in her advocating for Asian Americans to be stripped and taken out of advanced learning programs because there's too many of them in there. All right, so let's go to the next Nicole Hannon-Jones thing. What is this one? I believe next one. Okay, also we need to call out how disingenuous it is to talk about being a specialized majority POC when she means Asian. Specialized high school. Again, this is her advocating against Asians getting into specialized high schools because there's too many Asian Americans succeeding, and this hurts the narrative. So again, Asian Americans, when your kids get into Harvard or Yale or make you proud because they become very accomplished doctors or business people, this hurts the narrative, and you need to shut up for diversity. And you know what? Maybe your kids, I know they're incredibly intelligent, diligent, and hardworking, but maybe they should work a minimum wage job at McDonald's instead of in the medical field because life is a zero-sum game and they're somehow taking that away from a black person. Then here is Nicole Hannon-Jones, final tweet from her. This is after the shooting, right? This is her the next day because, do we have this? I stand with my Asian American brothers and sisters. Just as so many of you have stood with us, I grieve. We must own all of its history, all of it, and determined to fight truly multiracial democracy that we can all be free. Do you notice how there is a direct 180 from the previous tweets, right? We must own all of this history, all of it. Actually, no, we have the receipts of you saying we're going to discount a lot of your history because, Israeli blacks who fought for civil rights and most of you came after, so it doesn't matter. Again, Asians, you only matter when you fit the narrative. Now, was this a white supremacist terrorist attack? The likely answer is no. According to the perpetrator here, his ideology or his motivation was that these women were, maintaining his sex addiction, and he felt guilty about his sex addiction, so he went to go murder these people at the massage parlor. Okay, so we have to sort of issue a lot of political correctness here and basically acknowledge it for what it is. This was probably a rub and tug. Now, maybe it wasn't, and I'm being discriminatory here. If I'm wrong about that, sorry. Now, whenever I see massage parlor, on the upper window of a building, and it's not the main thing, I do not think it is for massages. I think it is for something else. Now, does this give anyone license to murder these women? No. There is a left-wing feminist narrative to be put out here in the wake of this. I mean, it looks like this is an act of classical misogyny. I mean, this is a very misogynistic act in the sense that this man has basically blamed women in a murderous rage for his faults and shortcomings. This is horribly misogynistic, right? This is a problem we need to deal with. And you would think that, if the left wanted to push a left-wing narrative, they would wait, see which one was true, and then, we could be talking about, toxic masculinity today. And I'd be willing to have that conversation today. Because again, I'm not one of those people who's not like, well, this tragedy is not a time to talk about the narrative. No, I think after 9/11, it was the appropriate time to talk about radical Islam. And I think after this act of, you can call it terrorism, mass murder, before we can define it definitively. I don't care if you call it terrorism now. This is an appropriate time for us to talk about misogynistic violence. I am 100% willing to have this is misogyny, how do we stop blaming, women for the failing, men need to stop blaming the women who seduce them, or not seduce, like, if you feel sexually aroused by a woman and you feel, shame about it, like that's on you. That's not on the women, right? This is the time to be having this conversation, right? There's even ways, his father was a youth pastor. This is even a great opportunity for the left to attack religion as an institution, right? They could make there's no evidence to this, but they could make the pseudo-scientific claim that, it was Christianity that motivated this because he felt guilty because he was too Christian and this caused his murderous rampage. There's no evidence of that, and any decent reading of Christianity would show you that, no, you do not go out and murder people. I believe Jesus and Mary Magdalene, I think that story pretty much tells you to not murder sex workers, is a pretty Christian ideal, but this is a conversation that is pretty left-wing. Is this, shame, like, again, and you can have the two different schools of feminism talking right now, like, is this us not being sex positive enough? Had we been a more sex positive society? Had we championed, Hillary Clinton having an OnlyFans account? Would that, solve misogyny and every woman needs an OnlyFans account and empower sex work is real work? And if we all felt like this, then this guy wouldn't have murdered or whatever, versus like, the over-sexualization of society and like porn culture, enables violence against women, right? Both of those conversations are very, very valid to be having today, right? Do we need to be more sex positive versus, porn culture encourages violence and misogyny against women? Where's the answer here? I don't really know, but this is why we need to have these conversations to find out. Instead, we're having the conversation about toxic whiteness and whiteness and whiteness and whiteness, right? This is being used to push the intersectional white people bad narrative. And then you're gonna get a lot of people tuning out on an actual conversation that needs to happen because they're gonna be saying, well, no, this wasn't even the motivation. So we're gonna have no productive conversations. We're gonna have a gaslighting conversation where, in order to woke signal to people, you're gonna have to pretend that everything is because of white supremacy, right? The recent attacks against Asian Americans in the Bay Area, not committed by white people, those get ignored for weeks on end, right? And then, 6 Asian women are murdered by a white person. Now all of a sudden we must talk about white supremacy, right? You're going to alienate people if you have dishonest conversations around this. And again, there's a left-wing feminist conversation to be had today. This is an act of violence against, this is, you want to call it misogynistic terrorism? I think you can do that. Misogynistic mass murder is probably the best label at this point. That could change in a week as we learn more. But again, we just can't have reasonable conversations with anyone. No one can have a reasonable conversation with anyone because everything that happens, it must fit the narrative we were talking about last week, and if not, we will make it fit. Dumb. It is just dumb. Okay. I'm going to go to Aaron O'Toole. I wrote a surprise story, not on the Chiron, doing it, pulling an audible. This has just come out right now. Spencer Fernando is talking about it, and you see Aaron O'Toole is trying to hit the liberals from the left. They will never love you. The liberals will never love you, Aaron. Never. Never. And anytime you try and beat Justin Trudeau to the left, anytime you try and do that, all he needs to do is show a video of you during the leadership campaign where you claim to be a true blue conservative and be a very right-wing guy. You don't have the media on your side. You had the media on your side in the leadership campaign because you were connected to you-know-who, he who must not be named, right? They had the media side. You get the National Post, right? Now Brian Lilly's, being your little cheerleader. That's nice. But when it comes to you versus Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh, don't think for a second the people who helped you take down Derek Sloan and Leslyn Lewis are going to help you take down Justin Trudeau. How stupid are you? So now he's trying to hammer Justin Trudeau on falling short on foreign spending, and he wants to maintain the Trudeau foreign aid budget. This is so beyond stupid. And a lot of that foreign aid, one, true blue conservative. So this true blue conservative believes in like unlimited foreign aid. Again, I believe in helping other countries, but foreign aid doesn't help them. Throwing money at countries with dictators is not a way to, I mean, the best way to destroy Africa is food subsidies. Like if I was a racist and I hated black people and I wanted all Africans to die, I would just bomb them with corn. That's what I would do. Or sorry, I would provide them foreign aid. Because what you do when you give foreign aid through food aid to different countries, what you're doing is this. You're basically destroying their markets. Now, I'm not going to use Ethiopia in the 1970s. That's a hilarious example. But all right, here you have a country that is poor and struggling with maybe famine and food shortages. So what you do is you want to sort of give them tons of food, which can work in a very, very short-term aspect, right? You have an acute famine, you send food, you can help. That's what they tried to do in Ethiopia in the 70s, except that wasn't a real famine. That was a dictatorship that was keeping food away from the people. But can't talk about that. But what we're doing is we're sort of supplementing these countries with free food, and basically it's the overflow of our corn subsidies. We have too much freaking corn because of the corn lobby, so we just dump all the extra corn on Africa. What you're doing here is you're taking countries where food prices and there might be food scarcity problems. Okay. What you've done is you've flooded the market with free corn, which means if you're a poor person, what are you going to do? Are you going to go get food from the local farmer, which is, let's say, inexpensive or maybe relatively expensive or relatively neutral, or would you go get the free food? You get the free food, which means that the farmers who are producing food are being severely undercut in the market by the foreign aid we are dumping upon them. So when you dump all this corn, what you're doing is you're basically making farming in that country financially unsustainable. So farmers stop farming because they've been taken out of the market by free food and they no longer have anyone to sell to, that they stop farming and then they get the free food as well, but then no one's creating food, so there's even bigger food shortages. So now we're hooked, now you're basically hooked on the free corn, and all your people have is just a bunch of corn, which isn't a good subsistence food, right? And now you've destroyed whatever agricultural industry they've had because you've bombed them with foreign aid. So if I wanted to destroy Africa and poor countries, if I was a racist, I would basically increase foreign aid to them. And I'd look like a hero to do it, because I could say, foreign aid, I'm giving $8 billion to Africa, destroying their economies and food supplies doing so, but I'm feeling good about it. And the other thing is, all the upper middle class professionals will feel good about it too, because they don't like to think about things too hard. So you get to say foreign aid, and they feel good. Enter Aaron True Blue Conservative O'Toole. And instead of trying to stand on any of this, instead of being like, no, here's how foreign aid works, here's how it doesn't work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut foreign aid, I'm going to focus on real aid, let's say. We're going to stop funding dictatorships. We're going to focus on Canada first, right? That's a true blue conservative. Instead, you have him saying, well, Justin Trudeau's so bad at balancing the budget that he's not going to have enough money to give it all to other countries. If I was prime minister, I'd be giving even more money to the other countries. It's like, what are you doing, Aaron? What are you doing? Like, I criticized PPC people in the last election when they said Andrew Scheer is just the same as Justin Trudeau. Because he wasn't, okay? Andrew Scheer had a lot of problems, and I was very vocal about them. Andrew Scheer was a conservative coward. Whereas Aaron O'Toole, I'm not going to correct any PPC person saying Aaron O'Toole is just the same as Justin Trudeau, it's liberal light. Now it actually is. Now that's true. Now that PPC talking point is actually the truth. So there's going to be no pushback from me now, because that is the truth. There is no difference between Aaron O'Toole and Justin Trudeau on almost anything. Except Aaron O'Toole is a lot uglier, which is going to hurt him. Aaron O'Toole. Okay. So, it turns out that the Islamic Republic of Iran has investigated the downing of Flight 752, and they have found that the Islamic Republic of Iran is innocent. So let's bring up this tweet here from Ashley Burke of the CBC. So bring up Ashley Burke's tweet. Breaking, Iran released its final report into the downing of Flight PS 752 that killed 176 people on January 8th, 2020. Iran found an air defense unit misidentified Flight PS 752 as a hostile target and launched 2 surface-to-air missiles at the plane. # Canadian politics. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of an inside story. I wrote the article in the National Telegraph that first broke the story that it was downed intentionally and not by accident. And the way I did this is because I decided to ask the right question. The right question is, how was the plane shot down? And the answer was an SA-15 missile system. And I spoke to, I'm like, do I know someone who knows how an SA-15 system works? Turns out I did. I did know someone. So I talked to Tom Quiggin. We talked about how an SA-15 system works. Now, I then made the video with Tom. I wrote the article. And before we go into that, I'm just going to let you know, the night I was trying to get that up, there were some publishing things with who was going to be the editor that day. They were at a thing, and there was a whole kerfuffle where it was delayed by a few hours, this breaking story coming out. And usually when you're trying to break a story with, national or international attention, be the first one to come out with a scoop, there's a big rush, right? I should have been on the phone with the editor saying, no, get your ass in there. Someone needs to edit this thing. Someone needs to put it up because it's breaking news. But at no point during that day, I had finished the article, I remember around 5 p.m. I was still kind of at work writing it as well. I finished the article around 5 p.m. It didn't get up till like 8:30. And at no point in those 3 hours did I feel any pressure that the National Post, the Globe and Mail, the CBC, or the Toronto Star would outscoop me. There was never any fear in my mind that, oh no, we won't be the first ones to get to the story. I knew that even after I put all this out, outlined the evidence, the mainstream media wouldn't even come along. You have actually useful idiot Burke tweeting this out. Even when the National Post a couple of weeks ago, and I talked about it, they found a recording in Javad Zarif, the foreign minister of Iran, admitting that the IRGC downed the plane and they'll never admit to it publicly. They basically said, oops, it was an accident, misidentified. Okay. The system they use, the SA-15 or the Tor B-8, is a highly sophisticated systems weapon, which means it's all computer modeling. And the plane was shot down over Tehran. So how these systems work is you guys set them to air defense on an area. Now, if the system was armed over Tehran, the capital, and they didn't ground flights, well, that's gross negligence, right? There are many flights coming in and out of Tehran at the time. Now, when a flight is identified, right, there's an alarm that goes off inside the control system. So there's an entire missile battery command, right? So an alarm goes off saying targeting laser has been acquired, and before you fire, there needs to be verification, which means before the first missile fired, they would have had to verify it. They had 30 seconds to figure out, is that flight a real flight or a not flight, right? So there was a lot of computer, but there also was a human element in here. The story you have to believe to say it was an accident was the system completely malfunctioned horribly. At the time it malfunctioned, everyone in the missile battery command had left to go get a coffee, and they left the system on auto-targeting over their capital city while they did in ground flights. So the best case scenario for Iran is gross negligence. However, they are going to claim, and Justin Trudeau is going to swallow this full out, they're going to claim that, it was misidentified, the missile kind of fired, and then it missed. Again, they fired 2 missiles. They fired 2 missiles. So after the first missile was fired, there would have been an incredible high alert. Everyone should have been running back into the thing to see what happened. They should have been able to identify that they hit a civilian aircraft liner. That aircraft liner would have been able to radio in, we've been hit. And then they probably wouldn't have fired a second missile, except they fired a second missile. So it was clearly intentional, and they've lied at every single step of the way about what the actual story is. It keeps changing, the story. The story keeps changing. Yet somehow, the useful idiots at the CBC and the Liberal Party are going to believe this story. Can we talk about the fact that Justin Trudeau, Sacha Trudeau, used to be a hired, paid propagandist on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Iran when he made propaganda documentaries for Press TV? Can we talk about that? Can we talk about the fact that Justin Trudeau hired him as a senior advisor? No. Don't worry. They've done an investigation. Let's just check. Let's go as of now. Let's check Justin Trudeau. 2 tweets in the last hour. Has he said anything about this? No. Tweeting about the Asian racism stuff. Something about Ahmed Hussein, blah, 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 blah. 6 hours ago. Nope. 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 Justin Trudeau's basically said, all right, so the Iranians have come out with their own investigation. They've absolved themselves of any wrongdoing. Oh, thank the Lord we have the Iranian investigators to get to the bottom of this nonsense. We're getting changed in Iran. Let's bomb Iran. Let's do it. I mean, we need to avoid boots in the ground now, but I mean, we've got Joe Biden and Justin Trudeau, both Iranian puppets. And this is a good segue on to the next story. So, from the producers of the film Russiagate comes Russiagate Part 2, Russiagatier. This time, it's Putin. CNN is running a story basically claiming that Russia interfered in the 2020 election. Yes, any claims that there's election interference was labeled as fake news, got you kicked off of YouTube, got you kicked off of Twitter, got you kicked off of Instagram. It was absolutely unacceptable. It was a threat to our democracy to even insinuate that there is any problem with the American election. Until right now, when the CNN wants to run a story that the Russians tried to hack the 2020 election. Now, the report they reference actually talks about Russia and Iran trying to influence the election, except they completely omit that Iran was trying to influence on behalf of the Democrats. They only talk about loosely how Vladimir Putin tried to help the Republicans. Now, we all know that in 2 months, CNN's going to issue a retraction, and there's going to be no evidence found that Vladimir Putin coordinated with Donald Trump or Rudy Giuliani in any way to influence the election. We all know this is coming. It's exactly like the Washington Post story that I shared that had to be retracted. 2 months down the road, where it turns out Trump never did get on the call with the election official in Georgia and demand that he should go and find election fraud. That did not happen. That was fake news. Oh well. Okay, so we're going to get Russiagate round two. And is there anyone that isn't, just absolutely done with this nonsense? Like, again, they're literally going to try and claim that Russia tried to interfere in this 2020 election. They're going to try and claim that Russia is sort of in cahoots with the RNC. And Joe Biden is going to stand up to Russia. And there's this fake story going around. There's so obviously fake news being pushed by the Democrats now that Biden claims to have met Putin and said he looked him in the eye and said, "You have no soul." Do you remember the only world leader to actually confront Vladimir Putin on the international stage? His name was Stephen Harper. He said, "I'll shake your hand, but you have to get out of the Ukraine." Only person to actively confront Vladimir Putin on that. Now we have Joe Biden claiming that he's going to be tough on Russia, that Russia is in bed with the RNC. Do you remember the year 2012? Because I do. In the year 2012, Joe Biden was vice president to someone called Barack Obama. Now, Barack Obama said to Dmitry Medvedev, Vladimir Putin's vice president, on a hot mic, we have this, that this is his last election, and after the election, he will have more flexibility. Medvedev understood. He said he would transmit this information to Vladimir. Then they shook on it, right? So Obama said, hey, I just have to pretend to be hard on you during the election, and then afterwards I'm going to be a lot more lenient. Do we know exactly what he was promising? No, but afterwards, Russia invaded the Ukraine. After promising leniency towards the Russians after his election, Barack Obama allowed Vladimir Putin to walk in and invade the Ukraine. Joe Biden was the vice president for all of this. Not only that, but during the 2012 debate with Mitt Romney, who has now become a hero of the left after he was literally the most racist person ever, the person that Joe Biden said wants to put you back in chains to black people, right? Joe Biden insinuated in 2012 that Mitt Romney wanted to reinstitute slavery, right? Joe Biden, the calming effect on American democracy. This Joe Biden, who allowed Barack Obama to give leniency to the Russians, allowed them to waltz into the Ukraine, belittled claims that Russia was our biggest geopolitical foe when Mitt Romney made it during the election. This man, yes, I'm sure he told Putin that he was a soulless killer and he's going to stop him. It was Biden, Hillary, and Obama who opened up dealings with the corrupt Russian oligarchs. They loosened all these restrictions, and then they tried to blame Trump for all of this. But it's the ultimate gaslighting, and it only works because the left is refusing in any ways to come out of their echo chamber. I mean, it only works because most left-wing blue checkmark journalists, the Blue Anon group, do not follow anyone outside of Blue Anon. This is why these narratives work, is because there's literally no information that will ever get into this ecosystem. Ecosystem, I guess both fit here. Okay. So Joe Biden is definitely going to stand up to Russia. I mean, I just can't... I just can't wait for Russiagate Part 2. Can't wait. Can't wait. Can't wait. Can't wait for my family who ridiculed me for saying that they were pushing the Russiagate stuff, months ago. When they were pushing it for years. And then, when they said, oh my God, Donald Trump's trying to doubt the election, I said, well, this is kind of like you doubting the 2016 election. Then I wasn't a Russiagate person. I guarantee you I'm going to hear about Russiagate round 2 this Friday or next Friday or the Friday after that. At some point during all of this, during Passover or whatever, I'm going to hear about Russiagate round 2. I'm going to hear about it. Then I'm going to say, remember when I said you guys were pushing Russiagate? No. The gaslighting continues. Gaslighting continues. All right. Moving on. We have some information on the WE scandal. I guess I won't go into it fully. I mean, I guess I do have time. But I did cover it in a couple videos yesterday. Pierre Poilievre, God bless the man. I wonder why Aaron O'Toole tried to kick him out. Well, I don't wonder. I know why. Pierre Poilievre basically proved that the Kleibergers committed perjury, and they did sort of conspire with the Liberals to get hundreds of millions of dollars. It was $900 million single source contract to hire like 45 students and pay them below minimum wage for a summer jobs program. So to recap for anyone who didn't see it, what happened in Parliament, the big story, the media is miscovering the weak thing. The big thing is Poilievre caught them in a perjury trap. Right? They've committed perjury, and the type of perjury is around the fact that Ben Chin, senior advisor to the Trudeau government, did help them set up this contract. And what they asked is, they asked if they had if he asked him if he had, Poilievre was great. He asked if he had any communications with Ben Chin, senior advisor of the Premier, and the Kleiberger said, under oath, no, we did not. And he's like, well, you're in trouble because you're going to have to explain this. Showed a LinkedIn message of the Kleibergers, Craig Kleiberger, thanking Ben Chin for helping to set up the government contract, which he signed Craig. He signed his own name. Then he tried to claim that it was his executive assistant who was just sending up feeler messages on LinkedIn. And I was like, no, you signed your name to this, and it's not about any of that. So they committed perjury, and there was collusion between the Liberals and We Charity to use the charity as a political slush fund. That is the scandal. Anyone who tries to turn it to We's actions and not being a real charity, yes, that's all valid. But the real scandal is the fact that the Liberals were using We Charity as a political slush fund. Now they're both trying to throw each other under the bus, but this is the real scandal. The scandal is the fact that the Liberals undermine our democracy by using We Charity and other things that masquerade as charities as political slush funds. That's the scandal. Hook, line, sinker. This has got to be the most corrupt government in all of history. He's facing another ethics investigation. I really want to know, what will it take for the Trudeau supporters to either admit that, hey, we don't care about ethics, and we're just voting Liberal just because, or admit that Justin Trudeau did something wrong. What will it take? The guy has a history of wearing blackface. The guy fired Jody Wilson-Raybould, I hate this, an Indigenous woman of color, but he fired her because he wanted to take full executive authority. He basically tried to turn Canada into a dictatorship by annexing the powers of the judiciary into the executive as well as the legislature. Now he's trying to use We Charity as a political slush fund, basically funneling taxpayer dollars back into his own pocket and the pockets of his donors using charities. Is it name something Donald Trump has done that is more corrupt than Justin Trudeau? away. Like it's by a factor of 1,000. You cannot even measure up to Justin Trudeau's corruption. And like, it's such a sincere question. Like, what's the line for the left on Justin Trudeau? Now I get it. Like, you can make the argument that it's not about character, it's about policy. Like, I want transgender abortions for the gays. Like, and that's my number one priority. Like, gay men need to have the right to have an abortion, and that's why we need Justin Trudeau. I don't care about the ethics. I just want gay abortions for all. Okay, fine, but just say that. Say that you don't care about personality, you don't care about ethics, you care only about policy. That's actually a valid political argument. That's the Trump argument. But what the left needs to do is they want to claim that they care about policy and personality while gaslighting the rest of us. Like, you're literally being led by Captain Blackface. And Captain Blackface is the most corrupt politician I have ever seen, bar none. I don't get it. I don't get it. I'm just going to keep driving myself crazy. All right, so I mean, I guess I do have time for the story, but I wanted to do like a dedicated video on it tomorrow. So tomorrow, the video is going to be on the father in British Columbia. There's a father who is being sent to jail because he called his biologically born female child his daughter, right? The mother and the institutions want to transition this child, get her on puberty blockers, perform crazy surgeries, turn her into a man, irreparably, replace her, and the father disagrees. And because he disagrees, he's being sent to prison. So I want to spend some time on that video and really think my thoughts out. So I'm not going to do it now, but if you're wondering, why aren't you covering that story? It's because I have a dedicated video coming out to that tomorrow. All right, so that's been the show for tonight. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I will see you next week, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Au revoir. And cut. We off?